Hi everyone, we've got the room filling up. We'll give everyone 10 seconds, 20 seconds or so, and then we'll kick off the session. All right, Tanisha, let's kick it off. Hello everyone. Hello, Tanisha. Today we're talking about Beyond the Buzz, which promises so much, and I'm so excited about being taught everything about legal ops here. Um, Legal ops that actually work, right? And before we kick off with a whole bunch of intros, I thought we should run a quick poll about the topic. I'll do some housekeeping about the session as we do the poll. So, Enza, if you can key up that poll, which we can all answer, and hopefully that provides some helpful content for our discussion later. Tanisha, I'll just raise some topics as we go through it. Um, but while everyone answers those questions, let me tell you a little bit about myself, Radiant, and Tanisha. My name's Ian Teague. I'm head of delivery at Radiant Law. Sounds like head of pizza delivery, but that's not what I do. I'm a qualified lawyer, I think about 15 PQE now, and really used to be one of the lawyers at Radiant doing lots and lots of deals, and now oversee our team of about 50 lawyers across the world, making sure they're doing great work for clients. A short blurb about Radiant. We're an alternative legal services provider. If you're interested about what an ALSP is, make sure you look at the session I did with Sophie Spur last week or 2 weeks ago about working with ALSPs. And we specialize in negotiating high volumes of commercial contracts for big corporates and scale-ups, kind of from the very simple to the very complex. And today we're joined by Tanisha. Let me tell you a little bit about Tanisha, and then she can correct me and introduce herself properly. But Tanisha's a 10-year qualified lawyer and has had a pretty interesting career, I think. Thinking of you spending time at Deloitte, Yoko, now Doc Planner. And in between all of that, we got to work together for 15 months or so at Radiant, which was really fun. And you're also a published author and legal ops advocate of note. So, Tanisha, welcome.
Thanks, Ian. Wow. Um, 10-year PQE. I don't know when that happened.
Right.
Still a spring chicken. Um, yeah, so thanks so much, firstly, for the introduction and also for having me. Like Ian mentioned, quite a different or vast and varying background. Started just like most South African qualified lawyers after my degree, started my articles. Unfortunately, 3 months into my articles, or for those that don't know, a South African context traineeship, 3 months in, the firm I was at actually closed. So I spent the next 3 years actually in non-legal roles, working at a vehicle finance house, doing like compliance work, and then at Nedbank actually, which is a big South African bank, doing legal administration work for I think it was the litigation department at the time.
Mhm.
Um, and after that, finally got another contract for articles, completed my articles when I practiced maybe 6 months. Wasn't for me, but I
Yeah.
ticked all the boxes to be qualified and be admitted as a lawyer. Um, and then moved to Deloitte, where I spent 5 years in really kind of different roles. So I started as a global mobility specialist, really support to employees that were sent to organizations all over the world. And then I moved into a legal advisor role for service line risk advisory, and then
Mhm.
eventually was in commercial and contract central legal team for Deloitte Africa, supporting the African member firm. So really kind of varied
Yeah.
experience up until that point, and then Radiant found me. Um, and yeah, spent about 15 months at Radiant, then moved over to Yoko. Yoko was building a new legal function, so I was really
Mhm.
excited to be part of that process.
And that was
And
small, right? That was a small team when you joined.
yeah, absolutely. So it was head of legal and two legal counsels, me being
Right.
one of them. And I
Yeah.
mean,
So,
there really was very little in place because, being a startup, they were very focused on all of the things, startup-y, so
yes.
fundraising and more corporate side of it. But when it came to the commercial side of things, there were very little processes in place. So yeah, really fun to be part of that experience.
Yeah.
And now I am based in Amsterdam. I am a global legal counsel for Doc Planner, which is very exciting,
Yeah.
very different role. Kind of more strategic group level role, and then also supporting on some legal ops for the team.
And that's a new change, right? You just a few months into that.
Yeah, I think we're just past month three, so
Oh gosh. Okay. Okay. Feet under the table.
brand
Okay.
new.
Nice. Exciting. Well, it's an interesting topic, right? Beyond the buzz, uh, I think hopefully this is a helpful session for people attending, trying to just go into some practicals, wins, things that really help. Um, but I thought a great place to start would be just with like the very fundamentals, which is be known to some people, but maybe we start here. Is maybe you kick off with what is legal ops exactly?
Great question, because I think that we take it for granted that
Yeah.
everybody knows what legal ops is. I think even with the title of, today's conversation, that it has become very buzzwordy, much like
Mm,
AI. We like to
yeah.
talk about legal ops and AI while we don't really understand what it is.
Yeah.
So I will explain what I think it is or what it is to me. Um, so in all of these varying roles that I had, a common factor, if you will, is that I always found myself doing these repetitive, tedious tasks, specifically in the administrative roles.
Right.
And I always found myself trying to build processes and streamline the way that I completed this work to make it easier, to make it less tedious. And for me, that is what legal operations is. It's process improvement. And
Mhm.
Ian, you'll know this well because core value of Radiant, continuous improvement.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
the Bible, right? And that
Yeah.
really is what it is for me, is looking at where you are, how you do things, and how you do it better. To do that, I think that there are three core principles of legal operations. So for me, that's people, process, and technology, specifically in that order. And I think of them
Mm.
as pillars because I think that you can't do one without the other.
Right.
Specifically because a lot of people, when we think of legal ops, the straight kind of thought is to technology and legal tools, and in this really saturated market of amazing tools out there, it is kind
Mm.
of the obvious answer. But it's also why it can fail and it can be really difficult to implement
Mm.
because we miss the first two pillars.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember when I joined Radiant, that was the mantra that we spoke about. This was 2015. And I don't think we were using language of legal operations back then, but we were speaking about people, process, and technology back then. So it's not new, but I suppose there's so much more visibility to these core pillars, as you say, and I suppose more weight to them as well.
Exactly. And I think as, of course, organizations like Clock have
Hmm.
formalized what these principles are. They go beyond that. I think they have 12 core principles.
Right.
Um, and so it's really varying. And I mean, only one of those principles is technology, right? But
Yes.
somehow
Right.
we find the focus always on the technology instead of those other things. And just to touch on exactly what you said, I think we've all sort of been doing this for a long time, right? If you take
Yeah.
the legal out of it, every company has operations. We're always trying to improve those operations. We just weren't calling it legal operations. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so now it's a little bit funny, actually.
Yeah. It's like the lawyers eventually woke up to it, right? There was DevOps and RevOps and sales ops and all of that, and then finally
All the
legal.
acronyms, and now it's all legal.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's people processing technology. Let's talk about that for a bit. You spoke about people first. Um, what do you mean by that?
So I think that when we think of any process or any change in the business, a lot of the times we focus on the technical aspects. We focus, like we mentioned, the tools or the automation. But
Hmm.
what gets left behind is the people that are using those systems, those processes, those tools, right? And
Yeah.
the most important aspect to try and ensure that you're actually successful with your implementation is focusing on the transformation. And whether that means buy-in from your stakeholders, buy-in from leadership, because you can't move forward and you can't be successful without that, right? So we
Right.
need to focus on change management, on how whatever you're trying to implement really impacts the user, because
Hmm.
that is essentially your target, right? We're trying to improve the lives of the people that will use these systems, processes, or tools. Um, yeah,
And yeah, and that's I suppose it's easy when you think about that to just think about the lawyers which will be using certain tools, but it goes beyond just the lawyers, right?
absolutely. So, in my view, yes, legal operations is, of course, supporting a legal team, right? But if we go down the chain, the legal team is supporting the business, right?
Mm.
And the business doesn't care about us redlining indemnity provisions or fighting about liability caps or, all of these things that, of course, lawyers care about. Sales teams want to close deals quickly. Startups want to move fast. They want to procure
Mm.
technology. They want to, work with partners, and they
Mm.
want to have systems in place that enable them.
Yeah.
So when it comes to legal, we don't want to be just a tick box exercise. We don't
Mm.
want to be red tape. I think we are seeing a very interesting shift in the value proposition of especially in-house counsel.
Hmm.
We are providing more of that supportive role to the business. We are more strategic partners in pushing that business forward.
Yeah.
And how do we do that? That's really effective. And that's where legal ops comes in, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we want to affect the bottom line of the business because should be told the business and the C-suite don't care about how many contracts we are reviewing in a month, right? That means nothing.
Yeah.
Like I could
Yeah.
say that, oh, our team, had sight of 100 contracts this month. Amazing.
Yes.
Um, what does that translate to for the business, right? Like if those are sales contracts, amazing. If they were
Yes.
turned around in a day, in 2 days, as opposed to 2 weeks, even better because we're writing revenue much quicker.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
so that's the impact that I see that legal operations really has.
Yeah. I hear that. And it's kind of the C-suite sees the impact of all this work at legal operations translates to hitting their goals, targets, right? It's kind of connected all the way up. But I suppose it's also sometimes I had a conversation actually thinking about this probably about 7 years ago with someone at a big UK company, and we were putting a new intake kind of legal front door in play. And I remember he said to me, "This is really great, but I have to fill in 18 different forms, and then I get to your form, and yeah, you can understand why I haven't completed this correctly because I'm just like so fed up."
Yeah,
And we were just thinking, to be honest, about ourselves. We were just thinking this would make us doing the work better, but we hadn't thought about the guy who was actually writing revenue at all in the whole process.
exactly. And how much more difficult we make it for them to do their jobs, right?
Yeah.
And we want our business and our users to be compliant and follow our processes. But if we're making it really difficult for them to do, then we do just become a tick box exercise, if even that, because they're probably just going to bypass the process, right?
Yes. Yeah, we've all seen
They
that, right?
see no value in the 18
Yes.
forms.
Yeah, yeah, we all see that. I spoke to someone this week who said their intake process is 40 questions before it gets to a lawyer, and was just like screaming out for help. And that's, I mean, that's where legal operations comes in big time, right? That's, I think the easy wins there to like slot in. Um, Process and technology, the other two pillars. Let's talk more about that because you obviously people first, but then how do
Processing
you?
technology.
I know you've got a particular passion about this, right? About like the right kind of solutions.
Yeah, I really do. Because again, I think that a lot of the time we go straight to the technology, which
Mm.
is super fancy and very exciting. But if we haven't focused on the actual process first and optimized that, you can get the most amazing technology and it's probably not going to work because you don't know what it's supposed to do, right? So,
Yeah.
to take a step back from even that is when we're implementing any initiative in legal ops, um, for me, the best place to start is a problem statement, right? So
Right.
understanding the pain point of the business or your stakeholder, whoever you're serving, and then understanding what the use case is for what success looks like, right? So this is what we currently have. This is why it's a pain point for me, and this is my ideal solution, or ideally what I would like it to look like. In within that, there's a lot of scope for process, right? It's like a map.
Yeah.
Like if I'm starting on my journey from point A and I'm trying to get to point B, maybe there are three routes to get there. What is the most optimal route, right?
Yeah.
And that can look different for different organizations, for different size teams, for different kind of industries that you're serving. So that process bit becomes really important to refine and to optimize to make sure that you're actually getting to that ideal end state that you want, and that's actually helpful again to the user, back to people.
Mhm.
Um, and then once you have that, and it doesn't have to be like perfect, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
we're iterating continuous improvement. But we have this general process. We know that if we did it manually, this is what it would look like. And then we can go wild. I mean, if we have
Right.
it, we can buy all the things to automate or,
Yeah.
or build internally. Um, and of course, that's where the technology comes in. Like once we have, okay, we have buy-in, we have the user's needs bedded down, we know
hmm
what process flow looks like, we've mapped out all the different kinds of workflows, and then we can go to the third pillar, using technology, if
Right.
possible, to automate. Yeah.
Yeah. And those process flows are easy. I mean, this has been around forever, right? Like whiteboard and stickies or a
Yeah, just draw
clipboard
a
that
mind
are,
map.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I've always found so much value in speaking to someone who's involved in some kind of process is to just ask which parts do you absolutely hate? Because normally someone says the process is amazing, it works so well, right? They'll say something like that, maybe one or two niggles, but then you say which parts just take forever and they're just frustrating and it's just so annoying. And suddenly you've got like all these stickies everywhere. Like,
Actually.
yeah, this is horrible. This takes 2 weeks. That escalate to that team takes forever. And it suddenly starts flushing out so much, right? Not just contracting. I know contracting is a big one, but like compliance functions. I mean, there's so much going on in corporate.
Exactly. And to that point, that's also why it's really important to establish your initial state, right?
hmm hmm
This also goes to when we're evaluating whether a solution is successful or not. And something that I learned at Radiant, to run an experiment and to see whether this is actually, successful. Firstly, we need data. Like we
Yeah,
have a starting
yeah,
point. But I need to really understand my starting point, where I am, what that looks like, the data behind it,
yeah.
before I can try implement something and then accurately measure whether that is successful or not, right? Because then there's two data points. There's your starting point. There's, okay, we're running our experiment, we're trialing out the solution. And then there's a second data point and whether we're actually demonstrating value. And if
hmm
we're not, we have to go back to the drawing board, like
Yeah,
implementing solutions for the sake of it.
yeah,
That's not helping.
yeah. And I mean, on the poll, the answer to the question of your biggest challenge from a legal ops point of view was poor data and reporting, which is not a surprise to me. I think this is what we see all the time is, and I think actually you can almost create data in the beginning. I was speaking to a team last week about this. You could go survey people and say, what do you, I know, what do you value here out of 1 to 5? How amazing is this process? You can actually like almost create data like that, some rudimentary ways to then get a sense of where are we now. You could, I know the lean fans will say, get a pencil and a piece of paper and just take a note of how long something takes, or like almost kind of manually create some data that you can then work with later.
Yeah, absolutely. And that data point could also not be accurate in the
Sure.
sense that I remember working when I was at Yoko. So one of the big projects that we had was implementing a CLM.
Okay.
They already had a CLM, but I mean, it was a super like a low package and effectively not very user friendly. So the team before us, or I mean, the single legal counsel before us, was really using it like a G drive just to store contracts. There was no like, tracking, intuitive data
Mhm.
points or anything like that. So we really needed to put something in place so that we had better control over contracts, who were signing contracts, and then renewals of contracts, which was also a big pain point. But when we first implemented the CLM, I remember us just looking at the data on that initial CLM that we had. And so kind of using that as a data point for an estimation of how many contracts we would generate in like an annual period. We were way off. We had to, I think we had to upgrade twice in a
Right.
period because the reality is that the system was so bad, people weren't using it. So it
Yeah.
might have looked like X amounts of NDAs were signed in a year, or these are the types of contracts that we're seeing a lot of.
Mhm.
But the system was so bad that it wasn't a true reflection. Once we had a system in place, a process in place that our users could easily use, they had templates where they could self-serve suddenly the numbers really, went up. So the initial data point in that sense, not accurate, but it obviously gave us a good starting point and we knew
Mhm.
like how to model the CLM
Yeah.
because of that. And then building on that in, the next annual renewal, we had a much more reliable data source because it worked.
Yeah. And you don't get stuck, right? So you can even say, I reckon this data isn't great, but it is a starting point. It's something to work with. And you might even know next week something more. Like you'll definitely know something more next week, right? Whatever next week
Absolutely.
is, it'll be more accurate next week to start working from. I find also, I don't know if this is just lawyers, but we're kind of taught never to lose, right? It's like there's a winner and a loser,
We are
right?
winners, Ian.
Right? We are winners.
We are perfect.
And we never make mistakes. We never run experiments that fail, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's core to legal operations is like trying things and not and trying things quickly and learning and measuring. Did that make a difference? Actually,
Absolutely.
if it didn't, then we try something else.
At Yoko, and this came obviously from like a engineering principle, we would call it fail fast.
Yeah.
So rather than sitting on something and trying to build it until it's absolutely perfect, just
Yeah.
ship it. Ship it. We'll see if it works. If it doesn't, lesson,
Yes.
right?
Like it
Um,
terrifies us as lawyers to like try something like that, right?
no, we don't want to get it wrong.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Okay, so process huge, right? But you don't have to get stuck there. Get a sense of what's going on, map it, figure out the pain points, and then go to technology. And what I've seen, and I know this has been going on for a long time, and it's going on now, it's happening even more, is running straight to buying a tool. Um, and it used to be CLMs, and then lots of failed CLM implementations. We all know those stories. Now it's running to an AI tool.
Oh yeah.
This will, right? I mean, I see it all the time. Which one should I choose between this one and this one? It's like, what are you using it for exactly? Um, so talk to me about that process. Like, well, you've got people, process. Now we're thinking technology. How do you digest what we shouldn't do?
Okay, so 2 point, my mind just like exploded with things, but okay,
Yeah.
so um the first thing I'm going to say is looking internally, right? So
Yeah.
one of the, I think, proudest implementations of mine when I was at Yoko. So exactly this, we went to market for a CLM, right?
Yeah.
Because we thought that's what we really need. And we did, they
Sure.
did, for a specific reason. But when you go to market, there's all these amazing tools that do amazing. They can run your whole legal department, right? So they can be a legal front door or intake. They can be reporting. They can be the actual CLM for storage, reminders. They can be a redlining tool. So,
Mhm.
of course, all of these features are amazing, but it's going to be really expensive, right? If I get an
Sure.
end-to-end tool that can do all of these things, regardless of whether I really need them or it's really
Yeah.
important to me, it's probably going to be really pricey. So kind of made a mistake when first, going to market and setting up demos, where a lot of the tools we were looking at were, these really broad spectrum
Hmm.
tools. But of course, being in a startup phase, we didn't have the budget. And they weren't really true pain points for us, right? So we had to
Yeah.
go back to the drawing board. We had to go back to the drawing board and be like, and refine. Like, so what are our core requirements? What are the things that are really holding us back, that are causing
Hmm.
us issues, keeping us up at night, and beyond the legal team,
Right.
we had over 300 web services at Yurko. Um, Most of them, I mean, like most web services and SaaS, automatic renewal. In the startup phase, people were just signing up for, uh, you know, you know how it is.
Yes.
So very little control over those kind of things. So yes, that
Yeah.
was a big pain point, but did that mean that we needed this really huge solution? Probably not.
Mm.
So if we extracted that and we thought about, okay, what are our real requirements? Because we don't have, hundreds of customer agreements that we're negotiating. We didn't have high volumes of contracting. It was more
Mhm.
a contract management issue
Mhm.
that we had,
Okay.
right? So we extract that, but then we also now are this new legal team and we want to build a process for how people contact us because
Yeah.
maybe somebody sees you in a hallway and they ask you a question. Maybe they Slack you. Maybe they
Yeah.
email you. Or maybe they just don't contact you at all and they sign the thing. I mean, secret option number
Happens. Yeah.
three.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so that was then from a legal perspective, that was really important for us, right? We wanted to have a standardized way for people to contact us that, streamlined the way that we receive requests and also the way that we track requests. So
Gotcha.
also important for our head of legal to manage capacity in the team, to see where we are, because as a small legal team, we were doing commercial, corporate, legal ops, IP disputes, I mean, all of it,
Everything. Yeah.
right? Split between two legal counsels with oversight of our manager. So really important to be able to judge capacity and then also, of course, have the business be able to contact us and manage our delivery through that. So actually ended up building a workflow in Slack. Um,
Yeah.
and it was really cool because we were looking also, the IT team had, like a ticketing system,
Sure. Yeah.
right? But
Service
that
now or something like
was
that. Mm.
exactly, but it was hosted by a third party. But we ideally wanted this kind of ticketing system where we could be able to receive a request and then we
Cool.
would be able to in a Kanban style, um,
Nice.
move through the different stages of work. So it's really easy to manage. And that's also helpful because if any of us are on leave or we leave,
Mm.
there's a record of everything that we've been working on, right? And everything is linked. So yeah, ended up actually using Slack as our intake form. So set up a workflow on Slack, really simple. Um, Already going to have really good buy-in because it's a system that people are used to. They don't have to go somewhere
Yeah.
else. It's not like a totally new thing to learn. And it is where they work, right?
Where they
Everybody's
work. Yeah.
sitting in Slack. And then we used Notion as our task tracker, also a tool we already had, we already paid for, already had access to, set up a task board, and then created an integration between Slack and Notion that actually each request then created a new request on the task board and completely automated. So if you, as a requester, as you click submit, a message was sent into a specific Slack channel. When that was assigned, a card was created on the task board.
Mm.
Messages were sent to the user acknowledging their request. So now all these steps were also eliminated from our workflow because I didn't have to manually create a card on Notion. I didn't have to message this person, received your request. These are our turnaround.
Looking into it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We already had a link where they could upload any document that needed to be reviewed. So that was automatically sent. And that was all built in the system with tools that we already had at no extra cost.
Mm.
Um,
And
yeah,
did you
so
get consultants in to build for you, or do you? did you just leverage your
So,
team?
no, I did everything myself actually, and this is the thing, it's so
Yeah.
simple, right?
Yeah.
It's really simple. You just have to have a little bit of time to play around. The integration, I did use an engineer's help with.
Okay.
Um, But once it was built, we could use that same, it was in Zapier, so it's a Zap. We could use the
Yep.
same Zap for any similar integration. And then other business units also started using it for like internal support and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so that was really, really great and such a quick win with tools that we already had access to. So to answer your question in a very long-winded way, sorry, I get a bit too excited.
No,
Um,
good.
is that yes, there are amazing tools out there, but I think that when you can look internally, a lot of us are working for companies that are tech companies, or we have access to tools that the business is already using that can be really helpful to our use case.
Yeah.
Get in touch with them, have those conversations, and try figure out something that can work for you. You're already going to get that quick win because you don't need budget, and you're going to get the buy-in from the users, which is the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely feel that. And I think, I mean, you're not a legal ops employed person to just do legal operations, right? You're throughout this, you're one of the legal advisors. You're counsel within the team, thinking about how we could do this differently with
Yeah,
that
exactly.
mindset. Yeah. I actually find that hugely helpful because you're almost like a user yourself, right? And so you're thinking, I'm a user. Like this would be good for me as a user rather than as an external party completely, right? And you're thinking about who I
Yeah.
speak to daily within the business, who sends me things. I think, okay, I can ask them. I'm involved in that whole experience.
And I think this is so useful, right? Because it's also like just thinking as a consumer as well, right? And
Mm.
everything that we even just as like a business, but as an employee, and like we offer services to our customers. Like if I was on the other side of this, how would I want to be treated? What would I
Yeah.
want that to look like? It's like principles of legal design as well,
Mm.
keeping the user in mind. Like we write these documents and we think that it's supposed to be like full of legalese and really confusing because that's how we were taught.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just yesterday, I was reading a document in my personal capacity. Um, and literally by the end of the sentence, I was like, I'm a lawyer and I have no
I know what
idea
it
what
is.
this means. Like, this needs to improve.
Yeah.
So back to that point on just really focusing on the user. And so I get this question quite often actually about not being in like a sole legal ops role.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure that I would thrive in it because I like thinking about it as a user because maybe selfishly it is also how I improve my work and we're working smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
Whereas I actually think that legal ops, like sole legal ops hires have a very, very difficult task. And I'm probably one of those people that are like, this needs to be fixed and that needs to be fixed.
Yes.
There's so many things across the business, and especially being in a larger organization now,
Yes.
having, entities in different countries, our needs are different. What that
Yeah.
looks like is completely different. So trying to build something consistent for a global team
Mm.
is a really, really big task.
Yeah, I think it gets large organizations. I think they start to need, or large legal teams, not start to need dedicated legal operations people. It's a hard gig. I think it's a really difficult gig because you got to. I mean, often say lawyers are like cats; they're not dogs, right? They're not like this happy-go-lucky, all play in a team. It's like I all have my specific concerns in this jurisdiction for this kind of thing, right? And we all
Okay.
act like cats sometimes. So I think it can be quite a hard gig to even get the lawyers on board.
Yeah, definitely. So we actually at Dot Planner, we have a fairly new legal ops hire as well. So I think Sarah started just after I did, which is
Okay.
quite nice and we get to work quite closely together.
Collab. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't envy her tasks.
I mean, yeah, it's also amazing your point there about building a workflow. I've always found it interesting. You go speak to some of the devs and say, I'd kind of like to want to do this, and then it integrates with that, and they go, yeah, easy, no props. I'll build that in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, and exactly. And there's so many. I mean, if we're talking about tools out there, there are these kind of tools and AI,
Mhm.
like Zapier, where it's already built for you. You just kind of have to know what you need and
Yeah.
have somebody that is technically inclined that can help you. Because of course, we're not
Hmm.
technical people, right? We
Yeah.
can and we can
We'll
learn.
geek out a bit, right?
A little. Uh, but and I think that's also a really good point is just knowing what your expertise are and then relying on the right people to help you. And people will help. You
Yeah.
just have to ask.
Yeah. Don't operate in a silo, right? It's like
Exactly.
I think you've done well to connect legal as a function as part of broader business goals. One of the questions I ask some people in legal ops is, how do you prove your value? And often I've met with crickets of, well, we've done things. I'm like, yeah, but how have you proven that this is a valuable function, a valuable role? I mean, you've got some stories about like demonstrating value, right?
Yeah, so I think again, with the buzzwords, right? I think that in a legal ops function, we speak about creating efficiency and saving time. And I mean, we even use these same words to describe tools and software and
Mhm.
AI. But what does that actually mean? Like, it can
Mhm.
seem quite abstract, right? If
Yeah.
I'm just being more efficient, what
So what?
value does that actually translate to? Right. So it kind of goes back to that point where we were speaking about legal ops supporting more than just legal and supporting the business.
Mm.
Because again, the business, they don't care about our legal tasks and what we're doing on the corporate side or what we're redlining. They care about how it affects them, right? So the way I see our value is how we directly impact the business and what the business is achieving, right? So if
Yeah.
I build processes that make it really easy for my sales team to be able to negotiate their terms, if I give them playbooks, if I allow them to self-serve, all of these kind of things, hopefully they're able to close deals quicker or move along quicker. They have clarity when certain things might need escalations because, of course, we don't want them to be cowboys either.
Yes, of course.
But we want
Yeah.
to give them the tools so that they feel empowered and they're able to actually move forward instead of seeing legal as a blocker. And that's
Mm.
what legal operations kind of unlocks is that we're no longer the blocker. We enable sales teams or business teams to do what they need to do and focus on the business tasks that they need to focus on without being worried about everything else. And they're still operating in a safe space, right? So we are
Yeah.
still providing the risk mitigation within our, risk appetite that we have or any
Sure.
organization has. So we're not allowing you to just go forward and do whatever you want. So they're still operating in a safe environment. We're ticking our boxes. We're compliant. And that to me is where we see our real value because that has a direct impact on the bottom line of the business.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like we absolutely need to be great advisors, right? As you say, risk, make sure we help the business do good deals. But
Exactly.
it's like if you are able to put the right kind of processes or people, technology in place that helps the sales team close a deal one day earlier, right? That is return on investment right there. Um,
Exactly.
and what I often think about is also getting rid of stuff, like removing things that results in value. Um, you were telling me a story a while ago about you guys changed something. There was some technology you were using and that was costing you a lot of money, and you found it and got rid of it. I mean, I think that's legal operations as well, right?
Right, exactly. And so to that point as well, right, and I mentioned that we had this big CLM project, we have the web services at Yoko that needed to be under control. And by implementing a CLM, where we now had this designated process for all of our contracts, order forms, etc., we were able to now have greater oversight over all of those deals or contracts. Um, and it came to light that, I mean, there was a subscription that had one user on, really expensive, okay?
Right.
Like
Yeah.
automatically renewing year on year, one user. And without having that CLM, without having that tracker now, where we had, these automated reminders, it would have just gone into another renew cycle. And so that also is a really good example of, demonstrating that value at a business level beyond just the legal level, because we saved, I probably can't say how much, but a lot
Lots.
of money.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that helps get buy-in because I know some people in legal operations have struggled to get buy-in from senior leadership, whether that's a legal operations hire or we want to change these things. But as you said, making that connection to the business goals and then saying, we actually help you make more money or realize these savings, suddenly you get the attention of the C-suite because, wow, this is
Exactly.
really helping the business.
Demonstrated value. It's no longer just the buzzword, and sounds cool to have,
Yeah,
which makes all the difference.
yeah. Okay, so we're almost out of time. It's been an engaging conversation.
Oh, wow.
I told you these conversations just fly.
Yeah.
Um, so I suppose for someone kind of starting to get their like feet under the table with legal operations, where would you encourage them to start?
So I would say start small. I would say, we spoke about the problem statement.
Mm,
Find one pain point or broken process, um, fix it and repeat. Like that is the simplest thing, before we get to leveraging technology, but just identify what that issue is, build a process and iterate.
yeah,
And from there you'll see so many kind of issues coming up and just asking the right questions. So I also often like to start with understanding why we do something the way that we do it.
interesting. Yeah, yeah,
Because there's a lot of things, especially as when you maybe just join an organization, this is just the way that it's been done. But
yes,
to look at room for improvement, first question you have to ask is why do we do this way?
interesting. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that's the advice that I would give. Start small, fix it, repeat.
Yeah, so good. And go and see. I know that's a kind of Gemba lean Toyota model of like just go see where the thing is happening. Obviously, with us and live through devices and remote, it's quite hard. But I also find like share your screen, just show me what you mean, and it's like suddenly you can see the problems more clearly when you
Exactly.
try,
Get
try and see.
involved. Um, yeah.
Brilliant. And what's last kind of comment is what's super exciting for you? What's on the horizon? Come and pitch the future to us.
I wish I knew. Um, but I think we're obviously going to see a lot more AI in
Yeah.
legal ops. That's the obvious answer. But I also think that we're really going to go back to basics. I think that we kind of rode the curve of the hype.
Okay.
Um, and I think that it's going to be a lot more practical. I see that we're really going to go back to the basics and identify how we are truly helpful and valuable to
Mm,
legal and to the business, beyond all the shiny objects. So I'm keen to see what that looks like because I think that we're also in a time where budget is really, really strained. Yes, people are building amazing tools. I don't know a lot of companies that have the budget to buy them. So,
yeah. Yeah.
it's going to be interesting to see how that goes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, had this little webinar series and you were helping us wrap it up, but we started with Chris Butterworth and he was speaking about value, like value in the eyes of your customer. And I think you wrapped it up with that as well. Like we're getting back to adding value and real value
Exactly.
as legal teams for the business, helping get the right things done and the right parameters, but adding value to a business and legal ops is a real key there to making that happen.
Exactly.
We're out of time, Tanisha. Thank you so much. It's been so good speaking to you.
Thank you, Ian.
Yeah, thanks for your time. I wish we were still working together. That was fun. It was a fun 15 months, but anyway, maybe sometime again in the future.
Sometime in the future, maybe I'll be a consultant.
Yeah, that'd be great. All right.
Take